No matter how much technology we use, ultimately the biggest frauds that happen are abusing, manipulating human emotions and technology, whether it's trust, whether it's fear. How people are using AI without understanding what it actually entails and what could be the repercussions. I experienced and saw my own grandfather scammed out of around $20,000, which was almost everything what he had. It's one of the reasons I got in this industry, to help fight fraud and cybercrime when I didn't even know what cybercrime actually was. We need to find clever ways to defeat cybercriminals at their own game. Cybercriminals are targeting and impersonating CEOs or people with authority and power. I'm not worried that an AI-based army of robots is going to take over humanity. What I'm concerned about is the year is 1834, 200 years ago. France had built one of the first world's data networks to transfer messages across the country in a matter of minutes. Not days, not years, minutes. How did that data network work? It was known as the semamorph telegraph, and it consisted of a chain of towers just like this, where each tower had wooden blocks on the top. The configuration of the wooden block would actually reveal a character or alphabet or a part of the message. But that wooden block configuration could only be observed through a telescope from an adjacent tower. So what happened is that an operator in a particular tower would use the telescope to look at the wooden configuration of the adjacent tower before it and match the configuration on its tower, rippling information across the chain of towers across the country in a matter of minutes. Why am I telling you this story? Because 200 years ago in 1834, two bankers, the Blanc brothers, decided to hack the system to get information that they were not supposed to have. I'm not kidding you. In 1834, the way it happened was that this data network was only available for government use, to government officials. It was not open to public. So for normal public, like the Blanc brothers, the messages still took days or weeks to arrive to Bordeaux, where they were. They wanted to get information about the Paris Stock Exchange and how the markets were moving at that time faster to be able to make money off it. So what did they do? They bribed one of the operators and had them insert one special character that would reveal the direction of the market movement from the day before, followed by a backspace, because that backspace would trick the intended officials to ignore that character. That's how the message was, that's how the network worked. If there was a character followed by a backspace, ignore it. So for intended officials that would receive the messages, nothing was wrong. They would see some garbage followed by a backspace, which was intended behavior of the network, ignore it. But that message or that character then went across the chain of the towers in a matter of minutes to Bordeaux, to Blanc brothers, for them to then make money off it. For 2 years, they were not caught. So when the world's first cyber attacks actually happened 200 years ago. And over the last 200 years, we have seen all different kinds of technological evolution. We have seen all different kinds of frauds because, well, human beings and criminals especially keep on getting better and better at it, finding always new, crazier, yet simpler ways that one could not have even thought of. In the 1900s, 1960s specifically, we saw a bunch of teenagers, just for fun, to figure out and hack the telephone system, to use the whistle with certain tones and frequency to switch to long-distance calls without having to ever pay for long-distance calls, which was quite expensive that time, especially depending on the distance and the time and the duration you're on the phone. And the 2000s, I mean, internet was invented already in 1983, so now what? Everything is connected. Anybody in Southeast Asia can hack somebody in New York. Of course, distance doesn't matter anymore, right? In 2016, we saw one of the biggest, at that time, cyber bank heists, the Bangladesh heist. You all probably are familiar with it. It's not a secret, right? 35 instructions were issued by the hackers to illegally transfer money through the SWIFT network, that would amount to around $1 billion. 5 of them went through. The rest 30 was canceled just because somebody noticed a misspelling in the SWIFT instruction. And it was caught just by pure luck. So they did went off with $81 million still, but it could have been a $1 billion cyber heist had they not been caught. Growing up, I experienced and saw my own grandfather scammed out of around $20,000. We're talking 30 years ago, which was almost everything what he had. It's one of the reasons I got in this industry. One of the many reasons to help fight fraud and cybercrime when I didn't even know what cybercrime actually was. Which brings me to today, exactly 2 years ago. Something specific and special happened exactly 2 years ago in March 2023. ChatGPT had come out just a couple of months ago, right? But there are key things that happened during that end of first quarter 2023. 3 key things. 1, the whole ChatGPT chatbot hype had reached the top of its hype cycle. We reached a point where almost the entire world was thinking, wow, we have invented magic. Oh my God, this is amazing. Finally, a chatbot or a AI that is like superhuman, that will solve all our problems. That is magic. Obviously, that was not the reality, but that's where we were. That's where our knowledge was at that time. Every week, dozens, if not hundreds, of new random AI tools were coming out that were being used by a lot of people around the world, including your colleagues, including employees in your organizations. In fact, just a couple of months later, studies showed every 2 out of 3 employees was using some form of generative AI tool also at work. I was working as Chief Information Security Officer for an organization, and I was talking to my team and the CEO, and it's like, wow, okay. On one hand, it's great for adoption of technology, but on the other hand, we don't have any oversight or control over it. And just from 2022 to 2023, we saw an increase of 200% voice-based scams targeting the finance sector alone. So then I was talking to my team and I was wondering, hey, we need to do something about it. We were seeing in real time a seismic shift happening at that time. That was not just cybercrime. Obviously, cybercrime has been there from before, but we were seeing an evolution in cybercrime like never before. We were starting to see more and more AI-based attacks. But what a lot of people were still missing is the risks that come along with AI that we were not even thinking of at that point of time. Because wow, AI obviously was magic, and it's going to solve the world problem or world hunger or cancer or whatever. So let's go through 3 of these key seismic things that have happened, especially in the last 3 years, especially last 2 years. Let's look at cybercrime. Cybercrime is already a $1 trillion business. $1 trillion business. Just last year, we lost more than $1 trillion to digital fraud and scams alone. This is not taking into account cyber attacks. This is not taking into account other cybercriminal activities, but just digital fraud and scam. Just last year, synthetic identity fraud was up 153%, which means cybercriminals are not just stealing your credit card information. They're not just using your data to create new accounts in your name, but now they're spinning up fake identities based on some real but most fabricated information to create accounts for people that don't even exist. Utilizing maybe your home address and then creating a new account and a new identity of a person that doesn't even live there. Year after year, we see millions and millions of credit card information, credit card details, personal information that are leaked and sold across the dark web. That part of the internet that's not accessible through the normal browser, that part of the internet that's supposed to provide anonymity and privacy, supposed to be a good thing, but that's why we can't have good things, because now they're being used for illegal activities because of the anonymity and privacy that it provides. Cybercrime has become a service. People that are buying or selling in the cyber world, in the dark web, they're leaving each other ratings. Great service, great product, man. It worked. Because they survive and thrive also on customer feedback. They're providing customer service. They're running fully fledged businesses with HR, with customer service, with refunds if it didn't work out. Heck, even with DIY, do-it-yourself kits, with manual instructions for how you could actually take over an account or how you could commit fraud. They're making it easier not only to sell, but also to commit illegal activities. You can even hire cyber attackers if you wanted for a nominal fee of about, I don't know, $20, $30 per month on a subscription basis. What is that, like a Netflix subscription? I mean, it's illegal, don't do it, but you could if you wanted to. Here's the thing about specifically the finance sector, why it's the #1 target for cybercriminals. The #1 motivation that cybercriminals have is financial profit, right? Financial gain. That has been the #1 motivation behind cybercrime. It continues to be, and it still is today. Espionage is #2, but #1, financial gain, financial profit. So finance sector has money. Obviously, they love it. There is data, credit card information, personal information, that can leaks, and then you can be extorted for money or sold. So there's money. So you got money and you got data, and data is money, so you got money and you got money. I mean, what's not to love from a cybercriminal perspective, right? The cost of data breach for financial sector alone last year was $6 million. Just for finance sector, the cost of data breach, versus around $4 million or $5 million global average across all other industries. This is why it has become so lucrative, and it has been and continues to be so lucrative for cybercriminals. But now we're adding to that this new technological adoption that's happening, which is the AI. AI is not new, but the way it's being adopted right now, that has never been happening before. AI is more than 60 years old. We have been talking about machine learning, supervised learning, and all of that, working on it for many, many years, for decades. But the adoption of it is something that's different. So how does it actually work? Under the hood, right, we're pumping an AI model and training it with loads and loads and loads and loads of data, right? And then teaching it or training it to produce intelligent output, or what intelligent looks like. Doesn't mean it's always intelligent, but we're training it to what intelligent may look like. What if I told you that all the generative AI applications, or the chatbots, or the AI agents that you're talking to every day, that you're interacting with day-to-day, are not just helping you or listening to you or talking to you, but they're actually understanding you and trying to mimic you and becoming better and better and more human-like. How does that work? Going back to the example of intelligent output, in this case, when you're talking to an AI agent, you call a customer service, on the other side is an AI. It happens. I mean, literally, my husband yesterday was calling his doctor. We put it on speaker, and there was somebody talking on the other side. I was like, honey, that's AI. That's not even a real human. I mean, you could hear it. So how does it work? The AI agent creates an output, in this case, the sound, the words, the tone, the pitch, right? Based on large data sets that has been trained on, based on the underlying machine learning model. And in this specific case, based on large data sets and examples of real human-to-human conversations. So it's trained on real human conversations to understand what human sounds like, what human looks like. Heck, even now there are examples where if you're talking to an AI agent, if it hears frustration in your voice or anger, it can adjust its tone and pitch to sound more empathetic towards you. Now mind it, that AI has got no feelings, but it's becoming scarily good at mimicking you and your behavior. And anybody, anyone, you, everyone in this room can actually create an AI agent today better than Alexa or Siri or whatever, just by using English as the coding language. Not saying that the coding languages are obsolete or that there will be no programmers or that we will not need that. But you can create an AI agent today that can mimic you or somebody else by just using English, because it's become the new programming language. It's become the new coding language. No wonder cybercriminals love it. It makes it so easy for somebody who's just a script kiddie, doesn't even understand it, can do that. Just a couple of days ago, or maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, the co-founder and CEO of Anthropic said this: I think we will be there in 3 to 6 months where AI is writing 90% of the code. Now, that doesn't mean that 90% of the programmers will switch to AI for coding or programming. It just means people like you in this room will be creating new apps, websites, chatbots, agents, just using English as a programming language. So a lot of the stuff that will be out there will be AI-programmed code, AI-programmed apps, AI-programmed agents that are doing things, that are taking action. A lot of the code out there, maybe 90%. Let's see how accurate he is in his prediction and numbering, but it is highly possible that a lot of that code out there will be AI generated, which means on one hand, again, great for technological evolution, but a lot of that will also be crap. That will have risks, that will get hacked, that people will not understand. In fact, this has become a new trend. If you go and check on Twitter, right now, there's something known as vibe coding. It's like the new cool coding where you don't have to learn programming languages, so you use AI to create fancy apps or APIs or whatever. And now these vibe coders are complaining that they're being hacked. Of course, they left all their keys and all their APIs exposed because they don't understand what they're building. This is happening right now as we speak. All it takes is a 15-second audio of me or you to create a clone of you that sounds just like you, to have a conversation that you are having while it's not you, that's based on a 50-second audio of you. This is what makes it so much more accessible for cybercriminals today to do what they want to do. This is what makes it so much easier. So when you see examples like these, distinguishing between what's fake and what's real is becoming harder and harder. It's becoming more and more and increasingly difficult. The data actually shows, finance sector saw an 80% increase in fraud attempts, driven in particular by the adoption of AI, by the scammers and fraudsters. Anytime a new technology comes out or it's becoming adopted, they're the first ones to abuse it, right? We know that, that's not a secret. But how fast are we understanding that? That is the question. And 75% of these deepfakes, what is a deepfake, right? Creating something that sounds and looks like you, but it's not you. Real audio, real video that sounds and looks like you, but it is not you. 75% of the deepfakes impersonate either a CEO or somebody in the C-suite, some executive authority and power. Why? Why is that? Because of this example. So a couple of years ago, a CEO of a UK company received a call from the CEO of their German parent company. So a German guy calling the CEO of UK company, right? Sounds exactly like him. Dialect, accent, to the T, right? And all he says to him is that you need to transfer $243,000 to our Hungarian supplier. We have a supplier, we need you to transfer the money. He does it. That's it. All it took was a voice clone and a voice-based deepfake to get that money to be transferred and be taken away, like stolen. Just 2 years after that, as if that was not enough. By the way, that previous example was the first case of a deepfake audio being used for a cybercrime to steal money. Just a couple of years after that, very similar incident happened, where another bank manager of a Japanese company in Hong Kong receives a call again from the director of the parent company, right? But this gets interesting. The director calls and tells the bank manager this: hey, we're in the middle of a very important mergers and acquisitions deal. Very few key people in the organization know about it that I'm entrusting this information with. You are one of them. In order to make sure that this acquisition deal goes through, we need your help. We need your support. You're one of the key people that knows about it. We need you to transfer $35 million. And by the way, we're going to be working with a corporate lawyer to make sure all this goes very, very well. He transferred $35 million. Scammers walk away free with just $35 million just because they used a voice-based deepfake audio of the director of the parent company. So this is the reason why cybercriminals are targeting and impersonating CEOs or people with authority and power, because they can come to you and tell you what to do and give you instructions, and 95% of the chance you will do it. Real example, I'm not joking. So I was talking to a peer of mine in the industry. His colleague, who is in Southeast Asia, his daughter lives and studies in the UK. He received a call from his daughter, allegedly, crying and really, really completely out of breath, telling him that she has been kidnapped and that they're asking for ransom. Lucky for him, he received the call from his daughter actually 2 minutes after to find out that that was fake. There was no way for him to know that that was not true. He was being extorted out of money. And my peer, who's also a chief information security officer in another organization, his job is to find out what are the security risks or threats with AI or without that are important for the organization. He wasn't aware until he actually made the trip down to Southeast Asia. How much do you know within your organization what is happening and where actually cybercriminals are attacking? On an average, cyber attackers are in your organization or in your infrastructure 200 days before they're even discovered. Now with AI, it's getting even harder to detect them. As if that's not enough, with the technological evolution that's happening with AI, now there are risks that comes with AI. So remember what I told you earlier. AI is trained on large data sets for it to understand what intelligent output looks like, right? We believe that as it consumes more and more data, it continues to provide intelligent outputs. But that's not really the case. The output that comes out from AI tools can be inaccurate, incorrect, false, misleading, biased, discriminatory, all of that. How do you know that none of this is happening? How do you verify the accuracy, the correctness, the non-biased output of an AI model? And this is not something the cybercriminals are necessarily doing. This is something that we are doing, the way we utilize AI tools around us. without having an understanding of what that actually entails. A landmark study actually showed they analyzed 3 key players, Microsoft, Face, and IBM. They analyzed their gender classification tool, which basically used computer vision for doing gender classification, and that computer vision technology was based on AI. So they analyzed their AI-based computer vision technology for gender classification, and the study clearly showed all 3 companies and their tools perform best with men versus women. It performed best for lighter skin tones versus darker skin tones. So basically, the output that came out was most of the time incorrect and had the largest gap for darker skinned females. Imagine using this as the basis of identifying someone and then denying somebody's credit loan because you have incorrect data, because your output is biased. And where do these biases come from? Mostly 2 sources, right? Based on how the data is, underlying data, if your underlying data is biased, you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out, right? So if your underlying source is incorrect, inaccurate, has discrepancies, is biased, is discriminatory, that's what you're going to get out. The other is algorithm, how the algorithm works. If the algorithm is trained, or if the algorithm is working in a way that is told, for example, to ignore certain races or to ignore certain minority groups, then that's how it's going to work. It's how you create the algorithm as well. So most biases, most incorrect, inaccurate, bias, or discriminatory output comes from either data sources or from the algorithms that are used under the underlying AI tool. Yet, where we are today, we're using AI almost every day in some or other form of decision making. Do you agree with me that? I want to see just a raise of hands if you believe that AI is being used on a day-to-day basis for some or the other form of decision making. Wow. Right? What is that decision making that's happening on a day-to-day basis? It can be anywhere from passive decision making of analyzing the data, understanding what the pattern is, what good looks like versus what is an anomaly. I mean, it's deciding what is good and what's not good, not taking actions, but it's doing that. That's passive decision making. To augmenting, utilizing the underlying data patterns, utilizing the anomalies, utilizing various factors, location, frequency, other real-time information to be able to say whether this is an anomaly or not, and then maybe sending an alert, or based on your 15-second audio, creating an AI voice clone of yours, right? Deciding that this is the right output, this is the right pitch, this is the right tone. Not taking actions, but it's still augmenting decision-making of human beings. To replacing, in a lot of contexts, in a lot of examples, human decision-making, especially in fraud, when we're using AI for detecting anomalies in fraudulent transactions, it has the capacity to just block the fraudulent transaction. Sure, that doesn't have an irrecoverable consequence to it. This consequence is not that dire. But what if the AI tool denied somebody's credit loan because it made a mistake? Because it decided, based on the factors, such as your background, your racial history, that you do not get the credit loan. So we are already using AI despite the fact that we don't know if its output is 100% accurate, correct, non-biased, in key decision-making in day-to-day basis already today. An average adult makes around 35,000 decisions on a daily basis. The question we really need to ask, how many of those decisions and what kind of decisions are being either replaced or augmented by AI? And what does that mean for our society? What does that mean for our businesses? What does it mean for individuals, especially in our industry? So I get this question a lot, if I'm worried. In fact, Mason was asking me just today morning when we were talking, is the future hopeful? I mean, I have scared you a little bit, haven't I, with all these examples and theories? No? Yes? Is there hope? So when people ask me this question, if I'm worried, here's the thing. I'm mostly optimistic. Why? Because I understand what AI is good for and what's not good for. Having that knowledge and understanding makes me hopeful. I'm optimistic because I know and I believe that we can create a net positive outcome with this technological evolution in fighting fraud in a way that it doesn't racially discriminate someone. So yes, I'm hopeful. I'm not worried that an AI-based army of robots is going to take over humanity. What I'm concerned about is how people are using AI without understanding what it actually entails and what could be the repercussions. That's what worries me. But that's very much fixable. So how do you fight fraud and build trust? Having scared you with all these examples, I want to show you the hopeful future. There's a lot that can be done, but there are 5 key things that I will show you today. This is not an exhaustive list. There's a lot that can be done. Let's start with a model that I created 5 years ago. Don't have to go into very much of specifics, but 5 years ago, I created this model that the world was focusing very much on just the regulations. It was focusing just very much on what can we have in place that is static, like having segmentations or patching or multi-factor authentication, identity verification, all the things that you do. Great. We still need to do all those things. But 5 years ago, I predicted that the world will move in the direction where we'll be needing technology to adapt and to have real-time detection of cyber attacks, of fraud, and be able to predict before even fraud happens and to stop that. That time we were not talking about AI the way we are talking today. So in today's world, where technology is changing so fast, where cybercriminals are adapting so fast, where fraud is happening in real time by creating even synthetic identities in the real time, it's not enough to just have proactive measures or preventive measures. We need to use technology against the cybercrime and against fraud. We need to beat them with technology at their own game. So how do we do that? First, very simple user awareness. The users are not the culprits. We often make them to be. Oh, you clicked something. Oh, now we have now your fraudulent transaction went away because you made a mistake. Oh, you clicked something and you put some data there. So now all the data is stolen and is in the dark web. It's your fault. It's not their fault. Users are not here to be defending and knowing and understanding all these things. Yet, it is very important for them to be aware of deepfakes. If you just sit here talking to someone, you don't know in a video anymore if that person is real or not. Just basic things like asking them to do this, or to do this, or to see if there is blurriness around in just the edges, not in the background. You can detect deepfakes. But those are the easier versions, but they're getting better and better. So you can't just detect deepfakes. It's not always obvious to the naked eye. But user awareness is the #1 thing. It is so important to understand and to teach yourself, your employees, your friends, your organization, what is happening around us. That awareness goes a long way. Doesn't mean mistakes won't happen. Doesn't mean somebody won't click. Doesn't mean somebody won't accidentally give away their data or credit card information. But it starts there. #2, actually utilizing AI for what it's good at. Actually utilizing machine learning for what it's good at. What is it good at? Analyzing loads and loads of data, which human beings aren't so good at. So how does it work? As I said earlier, the AI model is trained on a large data set to understand the patterns. It understands what could good look like, what could bad look like, right? Then when a transaction is executed, it is able to, in real time, based on the patterns, based on the anomalies, based on location, based on transaction amount, based on spending patterns, human behavior, whoever that person is, be able to either say it's blocked or not, right? It can still be wrong, so you can reinforce that learning by a feedback loop and improving it over time. But we need to use technology for what it's good at, which is doing things humans aren't really good at. Data behavior analysis, human behavior analysis, pattern analysis, all of those things. I was talking to a peer of mine who's working for a big financial services organization, and he was talking about how they are deploying this tool across their organization that allows them to assess their consumers, the customers that they're onboarding or the customers that are having some changes in their profile. They're assessing them in real time and assigning them risk scores, again, based on different factors. But what it does is the higher the risk score, the higher the likelihood of fraud happening. Doesn't mean it will happen, but it helps you assess already during customer onboarding or when there are key changes happening in a customer profile. Studies have shown when you use machine learning on top of existing fraud prevention mechanisms, then the fraudulent transactions are reduced by more than 40% over the long term. This one's interesting, the third one. So the first was user awareness, second was using actually machine learning for what it's good at. Now, how about actually using AI for beating cybercriminals at their own game? This is really happening. This is an example of Guardian actually creating an AI chatbot called the Granny, AI Granny, that talks to scammers for hours, where the scammers don't know they're talking to a chatbot. There's a YouTube account where that person has created hundreds of servers and hundreds of AI chatbots that in real time, these chatbots in real time are talking to real scammers across the world. Because they're chatbots and they sound like human, the scammers don't know that they're talking to chatbots. And the chatbots obviously don't get depleted of energy as long as we're feeding them electricity. But they're talking for hours and hours and hours to scammers, so much that in one audio, I actually heard the scammer get so frustrated. It's like, what is happening? I'm trying to help you. Why are you not giving me the code? So you can use AI chatbots to defeat scammers at their own game. In fact, even engage them for long conversations, revealing certain information that can help you find the location of where those scammers' locations are, or location tracing. Collaborate with authorities to get those shut down. Or yet use AI for deepfake detection. So here's the thing. AI creates deepfake. It can also detect deepfakes, right? There are obviously things that I said that human beings can do, but not every deepfake detection is visible to the naked eye. So how does it work? Deepfakes are created by something known as Generative Adversarial Networks, GAN, or GAN. It consists of two neural networks. One is called a generator, the other is called a discriminator, right? So the generator generates or creates an image or a video as realistic as possible, but it's not real, right? It's fake. It creates it. It can either send a real image or it can create a fake image or video. It sends it to the discriminator. Discriminator's job is to say whether that image or video was real or fake. So the generator wins at the game if it can create realistic video or image the discriminator is not able to identify as fake, and the discriminator wins if it's able to identify and say that it actually is fake. They keep on playing this game with each other and keep on training and getting better and better and better over time. This keeps on happening, right? So over time, generator is able to create really realistic content, video or image, that then discriminator is not able to identify anymore. That's when it wins. So how do you use that same technology for deepfake detection? So now, if you have an image or a video that is deepfake, that you don't know whether it's a deepfake or not, you send it to a discriminator. The discriminator's job now is to look for those things that is not visible to the naked eye or ear. Spatial or visual inconsistencies, pixelation issues, decoloration between edited and unedited videos, just the inconsistency in timing of when I'm speaking, my lips are syncing and the words are coming out, and the spoken words and the mouth movement, when there is a time-based inconsistency in there, very slight, that is not noticeable, but the discriminator can detect that. So utilizing AI for actually detecting deepfakes where it can. I was talking to a friend from MasterCard, and they were talking about what they did, this very clever thing that they did. They went across the dark web, scanned all the stolen credit card information, right? But all the stolen credit card information have only last 4 digits because they are for sale. So only when you pay, you get the full details, right? So they have only last 4 digits. So then they created a list of potentially fraudulent or potential credit cards that they have issued that could be either used for fraudulent, used for fraud, or used for scam. They create that list. Then they asked AI to auto-complete those credit card details. And when there was a match, they closed those credit cards to prevent potential fraud from even happening. So utilizing this technology for what it's good at, that's what we need to do. Number 3. Number 4, which will always be the case, going back to the model that I was saying, things that have been true for the last 20, 30, 50 years will still hold true. You still need to do all the basic cyber hygiene that you need to do. Good passwords, multi-factor authentications, making sure that you're checking identity verification, like all the basic things that you're doing. And now even using AI for just checking if the mail is a phishing email. Users are not able to always see and say, this is a phishing email, that this is a fake email that's trying to force me or somehow manipulate me to give information. But AI can do that. It can check for inconsistencies. It can decode that email. It can look for things and patterns that will tell it that it may be a phishing email, that you should not click on it, or you should just mark it as spam. So you will still need to do all the basic cyber hygiene. I have worked with so many different organizations, especially in the finance sector, and here's one thing that I have learned. The ones that are best at defeating fraud, this is my experience, the ones that are best at defeating fraud are where the cyber and the fraud teams work together. So many organizations have cyber as a complete silo and fraud as a completely different organization. Just raise your hands. How many of you, because you're all from the fraud team, right? How many of you actually even know who your cybersecurity colleagues are and you actually work with them actively? Some, good. But that's really where the power lies. Combining those experiences and expertise. I've talked so much about AI, and I've told you so many problems that are with AI, so many good things that are with AI. But if we want to have that hopeful future, we need to understand the risks that come with AI. AI today is not sentient. It's not deciding things on its own, even though it's taking decisions. It's ultimately governed by data, algorithms, what we feed it, how we use it, how we create it, right? So it's very important to understand, what does responsible AI look like? And there are 5 key sub-elements to it. Number 1, ethics. Is it ethical? Are you using AI ethically? So many years ago, Target used statistical analysis and machine learning to create something known as pregnancy prediction score. I'm not joking. Yeah, some people are like, what? What did she just say? Yes. They scrape the data from their baby registries, from their female consumers, and run it through statistical analysis and machine learning, and created something known as pregnancy prediction score, not just for the women that the data was on the registry, but for all their female consumers. So based on that, they were able to send baby coupons to people that they thought were pregnant and expecting. And they were so damn accurate. Legal at that time, yes. I mean, GDPR was not there at that time. Under GDPR, it would not be legal because you can't use data for something that it's not supposed to be used for, right? It can only be used for the purpose it's supposed to be used for. But legal, yes. Ethical, no. There is no consent. You're creating a pregnancy prediction score for women that didn't even put the data on that list. I mean, damn. So are you using the technology ethically? Number two, is it fair? Is it non-biased? So again, a couple of years ago, Amazon was trying to create this new amazing AI tool, which was going to become this holy grail of recruitment. I mean, we are all struggling in every industry with finding the expertise and the right people. They were like, you know what, we're going to solve that problem. What we are going to do is we're going to create this amazing AI tool where you can feed in thousands and thousands of CVs. It will do its magic in a matter of minutes and pop out top 3 candidates, boom, hiring solved. The problem, it hated women. I mean, I told you it's not sentient, but it did. Why? Because the data set that it was trained on was from the last decade in the tech sector. I know I'm an anomaly, but it's predominantly white males. So it taught itself that males, good, females, not so good. They had to shut down the project, rightly so. Good God, really. Transparency. When Apple was issuing their first credit card with Goldman Sachs that was supposed to issue it and do the underwriting for it, there was this big uproar that happened. A lot of male consumers were coming out and saying like, hey, what happened? Like, this is totally effed up. I'm getting 10 times more or 100 times or more, 50 times more credit than my wife or my girlfriend or whatever. Like, what is happening? Even Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, came out saying that. There was a proper investigation that happened to check into the biases and discrimination of how those credit cards, the credit loans or credit were approved and how were they issued. What was that based on? The investigation did not find any deliberate or intentional malpractice, but it did find out a huge lack of transparency. People did not understand at all on what factors was their credit based on. They were not able to understand why somebody got higher credit than the other. And as we go forward, this transparency will become very, very important for AI to be able to say, because it's making decisions on a day-to-day basis, as we talked about, for AI to be able to say why it made that decision, what factors was the decision made on, and how it came to that conclusion, which is known as explainable AI. Inclusivity. Is it including all the different demographics, racial history, backgrounds, all of that, so it understands all of this is normal? I mean, going back to the gender shade studies, right? If it's not inclusive, it will exclude certain demographics or see that certain demographics or racial backgrounds are not intended and are not probably good because they're not part of the pattern. And fifth, but the last important one, when it comes to responsible AI, accountability. Now that AI is making all these decisions, especially when those decisions may have consequences that are severe, okay, sure, a fraudulent transaction gets blocked, that's not fraudulent, okay. Your credit loan gets denied, that's worse. I mean, now you have to go through all the appeal process and everything, which takes like months, if not years. But what if an autonomous AI-based car swivels and hits someone because it's trying to protect somebody else, when those decisions happen, or when decisions are based that are having irrecoverable consequences to the safety of human beings, who is accountable? Is it the coder that created that tool? Is it the CEO of the company? Is it the user? Who is ultimately accountable for this? How do you find out? So what we need to do, in addition to all of that, to bring it all together, is to be able to audit all your systems. Not just financial systems, not just auditing your systems for internal controls to check for fraud, but also to check for cybersecurity issues, and now also to check for AI-specific risks, the ones that I told you about. So yes, there is hope. There is hope. But there's a lot that needs to be done, and there's a lot that can be done to understand the dynamics of how the cybercrime and the fraud industry is evolving, to understand what impact does AI have on these attacks or on how fraud is conducted today in such a simplistic manner by cloning video or audio, or so many other matters of just selling fraud as a service, but also understanding the risks that come with AI. And when you combine the three things, then there's a lot that can be done, but these are the 5 steps that I will share that you should begin with to have that hopeful future and to fight fraud and to build trust in this era of uncertainty with the era of technological evolution that we're seeing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica, so much. We're going to have a brief Q&A session here. Again, you can submit questions through the portal or on the app. We've already got a few here, so we'll just jump in. Really interesting discussion. I have a question here first. Someone asked, is there a tool that you would recommend we can use to inventory or identify AI that might be being used within our organizations, maybe without authorization or anything like that? Are the tools available for that? Because it does seem like a risk.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of tools out there, right? The different vendors, they have different qualities, but they're all asset discovery tools. These tools come into the asset discovery category. So I don't want to name a vendor or so, but just to understand that there are a lot of tools out there. And the way it works is that it tries to find something known as shadow IT, right? That shadow IT are all those assets, digital assets, including AI tools, that are not a part of your corporate software or asset world. So absolutely, there has to be done this kind of asset discovery that goes and looks into, because everything today has an IP, even AI tools, even software. So trying to use these asset discovery tools to automate that process, to find out all those things in your infrastructure and environment that could very well be just lying there, not corporate managed, where you don't have an oversight, definitely needs to be revealed. It's very, very important, because that's where the cyber criminals use those as weaknesses and abuse them and enter your infrastructure without you even knowing about it.
We have another one here. You talked a little bit about this. You know, we hear so much of the scare or not scare tactics really, because it is legitimately scary, but we hear so much about the threats, and the first part of your presentation went over that, but we did talk about the hopeful aspects. How would you generally characterize the level of defensive potential of AI to prevent and detect fraud as opposed to the offensive potential for people to attack us with it? Like, are they on the same level technologically? Do we have tools, AI-based tools that really can identify AI and protect us against it, or are we still playing catch up?
Yeah. So before we had the adoption of AI a couple of years ago in the way we had, before that, let's say, let me use an analogy. We're always playing cat and mouse chase, right? We're always doing that. the cybercriminals and the people that are committing fraud will always be ahead of us because we don't know yet what we don't know. That's always difficult to know what we don't know, right? But if a couple of years ago, let's say we were 10 steps behind them, now with AI, we can reduce that gap, if not close it. We will never be able to close it. There is no 100% security. There is no 0% fraud. That's just not going to happen. And that should not be the aim either. The aim should be to reduce that gap. That is what the aim is, right? So now using AI as a technology in defense, we are still a bit behind the way cybercriminals are using it. That's correct. But we are getting better. I gave you an example. I mean, I'm seeing this around us. AI is being legitimately used in organization to just detect phishing emails or to detect any changes in the attacks that come in. So there are some scenarios, especially in something known as when you're doing security attack detections, when you're doing analysis of any potential indicators of compromise, any potential indicators of fraud. We are seeing AI actually being especially used in incident detection and incident management. That is one use case that's actually happening, very, very much real so in defense. There's a lot of other cases we need to get better at. We're not seeing that yet. But the technology has potential. Why not? I mean, the examples that I gave you about using AI to defend and scam scammers, using AI granny or somebody who can create hundreds of chatbots to talk to scammers for hours and hours, that's one use case I can definitely get behind. We need to find clever ways to defeat cybercriminals at their own game. That is very, very important. And the thing is also that you have to remember that part about offensive that you said, there will always be that. But 20 years ago, I used to work as a white hat hacker. I used to actually hack things, right, for a living. I was allowed to do that, so it was all legit. But having done that, I understand better than maybe anybody else the psyche of an attacker, the psyche of a cybercriminal, the psyche of a person who's committing fraud. Having the understanding of that psyche is so key. Because one thing that hasn't changed over the 200 years that I gave you the example of, that human psychology will still be manipulated in all these examples. No matter how much technology we use, ultimately what is happening, the biggest frauds that happen are abusing, manipulating human emotions and technology, whether it's trust, whether it's fear, whatever it is. So we kind of need to understand that combination, and that's what we're going to use. We need to, just like the cybercriminals, we need to use technology and we need to use human psychology together if we want to get better at defense, because technology alone will not get us there.
That actually kind of plays into the next question that came in, which is how can you train your workforce against deepfakes, or how do you prepare them? Do you have tips or recommendations on the best ways to do that?
Yeah. So a couple of things, right? When you're doing these user awareness trainings, first make it fun. Don't make them boring. Nobody likes the word security. Everybody hates it, even though it's important, right? So you want to make it fun for them. I mean, I had my whole team, but yet I would do every now and then user awareness onboarding sessions for my employees in the organization, making it storytelling, making it fun for them, because this is how you engage people. You want to help them understand what's in it for them. That's one. Two, the couple of tips around how to detect for a human, naked eye and naked ear. It's obviously not everything, but it's a couple of things that I said in understanding if there is specific blurriness around the edges, not specifically the background, but just around the edges of a deep faked audio or video in that case. I mean, not audio, but video. The other is asking somebody to just wave their hand in front of the face. If you're talking to someone, then you're able to detect sometimes there is blurriness that happens when there is face swapping that is going on. There are companies out there right now that are legit providing you face swapping softwares. So you kind of have to tell your employees, make them just aware of what's happening around them. Don't treat them as dumb people. That's so important. I struggle with this in our industry, where we blame the victims, where we tell them that you're stupid, you clicked on this thing, why did you do that? I mean, God forbid, that's not their job every single day. Neither is it yours, but it's important to understand. The more you're able to engage them, give them some tips, help them understand. I mean, when March 2023 happened, and in my role at that time, when I was concerned about the three things I was talking about earlier, I talked to my team and I was like, you know what? Okay, we are going to do awareness, right? We're going to have a governance policy around AI. We're going to tell our employees not just what they can't do, but what they can do. When our employees were using AI tools, which are external, which are not monitored by us, which don't have any corporate management on them, no oversight, you can use them as long as you don't put sensitive business, customer data into that. So having those kind of governance policies for your employees that don't just tell them what not to do, but also what they can do, these are the kind of things that then help them feel that they're part of the mission, making them a part of the mission. That's the best part of user awareness.
That education awareness is always such a struggle, but it's so important, right? In fraud and in technology and so forth. I have another question here that's more focused on companies rather than individuals, but in your opinion, are companies and boards investing sufficiently and allocating sufficient budget to address these risks? Do you see awareness being at the level it should be?
The answer is depends. It really, really depends on company to company and organization to organization. There is no one silver bullet answer to this question. I have been in organizations and companies where I have seen boards and CEOs really being invested in it. When we were doing the AI governance and strategy for creating our first business use case for it, my team from the cyber side was also involved in it as a part of the whole business case, because there was business trying to figure out what we're going to do and what we're going to legit use AI for in our business. Cyber being a part of it from the very beginning is a big thing. And that I have seen in some companies happening. On the other hand, there are also companies that are absolutely legit not caring about the risks, and they're just hellbound on, well, we're going to have something AI, whatever it is, I don't care. Bring some AI so we can have more revenue, probably more profit, better investments, more VCs. I mean, it's the entire spectrum. What can I say? It's everything from actually companies caring about it to companies just being like, build me something AI, whatever it is, I don't care. We just have to have some AI-powered stuff.
Yeah. We do have another question. What would be your recommendation regarding an AI audit? Like what should an audit program include, tests to be performed, who should be audited? Do you have any recommendations around that?
Yeah, it goes very much into what I was saying earlier in the, let me see if I can bring that back. It goes back to this part, right? When you are doing audits for AI-specific risks specifically, you have to check for things like how the data is being fed into, where the data comes from, the quality of the data, whether it's classified correctly. Are you actually even having internal controls that take into account AI risks? So most audit, when it happens, and the governance framework around it is based on internal controls, right? Those internal controls look into, well, fraud, collusion, all of these internal problems that happen in terms of fraud. But then there are obviously audits that are specific to cyber, right? That they're looking into cybersecurity issues, vulnerabilities, and so on. But now you need to include those controls that look into also AI-specific risks, specifically ethics, biases, data sets. When an AI tool is being used and procured, are they doing an AI risk assessment? Is that a part of that procurement process? Or when you're building an in-house AI tool, who is actually looking into, who is accountable and responsible for it? Was a cyber team involved? When you created it, did you do testing against it for biases, right? So when you're doing an audit, you need to, again, think from that perspective and that hat of whether all those things that should have happened actually did happen or not, and where the controls are missing. Because you need to extend your governance framework and your controls to include those risks now when you're doing auditing.
We just had another one that came in that kind of touches on. Is there any active approach or framework that targets improving the data quality out there in order to prevent discriminatory performance of AI? Some of the things you were talking about before.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of frameworks, a lot of different countries have created their AI governance standards. If you haven't, you should look at them. I know specifically from Germany there is one. There's one from Norway. I was actually involved in, working in Norway, I was actually involved in their national AI governance strategy, where it was actually, there were controls in there about how do we go about checking discrimination or biases and so on. So there are a lot of standards out there on the country level, but also from NIST, and actually looking also into EU, the AI Act that is now in place, which is actually allowing or telling the organizations to actually comply to it. Looking at the previous example, what I was saying about credit loans, right? When you have, for example, an AI tool in your organization that looks into various factors, not just location or not just things like what kind of spending history do you have, what kind of spending patterns do you have, even kind of behavior that you have, which can be found out by the data that's on your mobile phone, for example. When you have tools that look into that kind of data, it becomes very fast, very invasive. And those AI tools that then say either give you a high or low credit score or deny or accept your loan, they immediately come into the high risk category, and then they need to comply to, for example, EU AI Act. So there's a lot of standards out there. There's a lot of good work that is being done. It's important to just understand what do you start with. And data classification and quality is definitely one of the key things I would recommend to start with, because what you put in is what you're gonna get out. So that's really the key place to start.
Do you have, well, we got just a couple more. There's a lot of interest in this subject, obviously.
Yeah, please.
We got one that came in. Recommendations on how we can be sure that people aren't using public AI to support work that maybe includes proprietary information or stuff like that, like in terms of people putting.
Yeah, so you cannot control what people are using outside the work. Like if they're using AI tool that is external, I know they will use it. The way you can do it is actually using technology like data loss prevention, DLP, or any kind of other mechanisms that actually is able to detect data being leaked from your organization's boundary outside. So that's not just specific to AI, but when you have users that are extracting a lot of information and putting it in, I mean, it's a combination of asset discovery, figuring out whether AI is being deployed, which is not corporate managed in your environment, but then also having controls that would then check if data is being transferred from within your premises to externally, either through emails or either through other mechanisms like iCloud or share drives or whatever. So having that combination is how you find out whether it is being used. So you have to tell users to not do it, but you can't rely on them not doing it. Mm-hmm. You have to actually use a combination of the technology to both discover if the tools are being deployed in the environment or data is being leaked or data is being used in the environment or from the environment outside.
We've just got about a minute left, but I think we've got one question here that really gets to the heart of all our concerns. When are the robots going to take all our jobs?
So they probably will, right? But is that really completely bad thing? And here's an analogy I want to share today, okay? If you look at agriculture as an industry, right? I don't know, maybe 50, 60, 70 years ago, before even the Industrial Revolution happened, 95% of the world was doing agriculture. That's what we all did. We all did agriculture. None of us in this room are doing right now agriculture, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, gardening doesn't count, but okay. But here's the point. So we have automated agriculture to the extent that we are not doing it. That doesn't mean we're not doing other things. I think we're more concerned about AI taking our jobs versus actually just understanding what it is good for, what it's not good for, how can we leverage it, how can we make sure we leverage it in the 5 ways that I was talking about right now here. That is more important. Sure, it will replace, I mean, I would want actually a robot to do a lot of the jobs that I do today for me to actually focus on things that is better. I even feel that we can come to a point where we'll not be analogy, but we won't be robots working 9 to 5 like crazy. Maybe we need robots to do the work that we are doing robotically today.
That seems like a good place to end. Thank you, Monica,
Thank
so
you.
much for the presentation.